the Philippines. 17 regions and 81 provinces, spread across 7,641 islands, each one a home to people, places, and potential.
The Philippines, a member of ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and BIMP-EAGA, the Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area.
There's definitely more to the Philippines than just the national capital region.
Find out more about what the rest of the regions that comprise our archipelago and the regional groupings that our country is part of have to offer to us and to the world on Regional Roundup.
Regional Roundup with Bing Kimpo, a closer look at the regions in and around us.
A wider perspective of our islands and our part of the world. Welcome back to Regional Roundup. My name is Bing Kimpo. This episode, we again train our focus on BIMP-EAGA, the Brunei Darussalam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East ASEAN Growth Area. BIMP-EAGA comprises the entire Sultanate of Brunei Darussalam, the provinces of Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Maluku, and West Papua in Indonesia, the states of Sabah and Sarawak, and the Federal Territory of Labuan in Malaysia, as well as the whole of Mindanao and the province of Palawan here in the Philippines. The website of BIMP-EAGA describes these areas as geographically far from their respective national capitals, yet strategically close to each other. It goes on to say that these states and provinces account for over 60% of the total land area of the BIMP-EAGA member countries, yet they make up less than 20% of their populations and 18% of the labor forces. Those of you who have been listening to Regional Roundup for some time now will have already guessed that BIMP-EAGA is one of my favorite subjects. Why? Simply put, I believe it holds a significant key to our growth as an archipelago. It is a story that must be told and its developments followed. This is the first of a series of episodes that we are dedicating to the topic of connectivity in BIMP-EAGA. Connectivity is one of the 5 pillars on which BIMP-EAGA initiatives rest. Apart from the connectivity pillar, the 4 other pillars are the food basket pillar, the tourism pillar, the environment pillar, and the socio-cultural and education pillar. Within the connectivity pillar itself are separate clusters of effort that deal with transport, trade, and investment facilitation, information and communications technology infrastructure, as well as with power and energy infrastructure. Last September, at a meeting in Jakarta, the Philippines accepted the chairmanship of both the transport cluster and the air linkages working group of BIMP-EAGA. On Regional Roundup this episode, we're speaking with Felicismo Pangilinan, Director for Planning Services at the Department of Transportation. Director Pangilinan headed the Philippine delegation to the BIMP-EAGA Transport Cluster meeting in Jakarta. Now let's start off with this. Insofar as transport connectivity in BIMP-EAGA is concerned, where are we right now?
So far, when we review the transport cluster, it would appear that we are the fastest in terms of accomplishment. Why? We made some development in infrastructure. Kasi even sabihin mo, mag-connecta tayo. Hindi naman ready yung infrastruktura mo. Okay, ano ginawa natin? In the Philippines alone, why was Davao Airport developed and funded by the Asian Development Bank? It's because of BIMP-EAGA. Because on the other side, ADB also developed Manado Airport.
That's right. Oh.
Okay. Now, ano yung mga areas natin for BIMP-EAGA? Our areas for BIMP-EAGA is the whole of Mindanao plus Palawan. So, anong ginawa natin? We develop also Puerto Princesa. We develop also the new Cagayan de Oro Airport, which is Laguindingan Airport. Then, right now, katatapos lang namin yung General Santos Airport. Natapos din natin yung development ng Macarward.
Jensan.
Okay? Na-develop natin yon. Okay? Now, at the present government, I hope, made-develop na natin ang Zamboanga to the new site. In Mindanao, we are establishing now the railway network. So makikita mo ngayon, ito yung magkukomplete nung nung mga missing infrastructure. Because if we will not do that, even if we sign several agreements, it's nothing. Why? Paano pupunta sa'yo? Wala ka namang facilities. That is the strategy. Okay? We need to do it. When we sign, we must be ready. That's the secret. Now, we are now ready. The way I look at it. Okay. When we talk, the four countries, when we talk and we check on the status of the infrastructure, sabi ng ADB, we would like to congratulate the transport cluster for achieving this level of development.
So we've got some of the necessary transport infrastructure already in place, connecting parts of the Philippines with some of the other parts of the BIMP-EAGA sub-region. The question then is this: are these already being used by businesses, by the private sector?
The private sector were given the status of fifth country. That is the reason why they can sit down in the meeting of BIMP-EAGA. So doon na-create yung BEBC, BIMP-EAGA Business Council. It is a group of business people from the four countries. Kasi ganito yun BIMP-EAGA was conceptualized. It was conceptualized wherein it would be a public-private approach to development. Okay? It's not a one-way. Okay? It's not a government alone, but rather a public-private approach. The private sector will serve as the engine of growth, while the public sector will take the position of providing the environment or the enabling materials or scenario. Okay? So ganun yun. The government will put the environment. Kaya ganyan ko sinabi, it's because the infrastructure must be ready. Sasabihin sa'yo ng private sector, oy, gusto namin pumunta doon. Paano kami makakapunta? Wala namang airport. Yung airport ninyo doon, hindi naman makaka-accommodate. Yung puerto ninyo doon, hindi naman po pwede. Now, in the cluster, in the transport cluster, here's the situation now. It appears that we provided not 100%, but we provided already more than the initial requirement in terms of infrastructure, in terms of regulatory framework, in terms of policy. So now, it should be up to the private sector to benefit from it.
Already have been a few routes to and from the Philippines serving BIMP-EAGA destinations in the last few years, pre-pandemic of course. What are the plans for bringing them back?
Okay, in terms of air linkages, the president went to Jakarta. He said, I want the revival of Davao Manado. Okay? He came there after we met in Jakarta ng BIMP-EAGA. So it was not discussed. So we talked with our counterpart in Jakarta and we discussed it here also. That link is included in the MOU. We asked the CAB to write the airlines. How can we revive Davao Manado? What do you need from the government? If I will go back to your question where we are, that is where we are right now. The government, we provided already the initial or more than the initial requirement in terms of infrastructure, in terms of framework. Now, we are requesting the private sector, it's your time. Because we cannot, as a government, okay, what can we do? I can still remember before we developed Davao. There was an initial flights by Burak Airlines, Davao to Manado. And it stopped because of problem on the part of the private sector of the airline. There's another one, and it did not last long. We have another one in Puerto Princesa. There was a flight for almost a year between KK and Puerto Princesa by the mass wing. The problem is, it's the load factor. For me, that is the normal thing that will happen. Okay, because we are developing the road. But what we did, the Philippines, parang binuksan lang ba natin? No. Don't you know that CAAP provided discount of 50% in all of its charges for BIMP-EAGA flights for Puerto Princesa and for Davao also before. Other countries, anong ginawa nila? I don't know if it's Jakarta or Malaysia who provided some incentive. Oh, we'll give you 20% for the first year. On our side, we did not put an effectivity date. Sabi lang namin, sige, basta 50% kayo, period. Because we are serious in developing the routes. When we develop Puerto Princesa and the Korean government, we are actually enticing the Korean Air to put a sub-hub there because it is the Korean government who funded Puerto Princesa Airport and also the Laguindingan Airport. So mamili na sila ng pupwede. So just imagine, airline coming from this BIMP-EAGA will go to this airport and their passenger could go to other countries or to Korea from that airport.
Wow.
Okay? Ano ang kulang? Hindi na sa amin.
Oh, private sector. Actually,
not only private sector, tourism and trade.
Yes.
Kaya gusto naming makipag-converge now. Because by providing this opening, we are opening ourselves already. So yun yung sinasabi namin na the transport cluster cannot do it alone. Because we are limited on this. We will provide the facilities. We will provide the framework. We will provide the environment. The question is, are all these things already there? Yes. So just a matter of exploring it and marketing it for also sustainable and make it sustainable.
BIMP-EAGA has been focusing infrastructure projects along two economic corridors. The West Borneo Corridor, which is being developed as an oil and gas corridor, and the Greater Sulu-Sulawesi Corridor, which is being positioned as the maritime corridor and the nerve center for barter trade. You've mentioned a third corridor.
Ito yung sinasabi ko sa yung secret natin dapat. We are trying to develop now Mindanao with all this infrastructure. That's the reason why we need to complete all this infrastructure in Mindanao for us to be ready with the third corridor. MINDA, or the Mindanao Development Authority, is calling it Mindanao Corridor. Okay? Na magko-connecta doon sa dalawang corridor previously designated. And from there, okay, then i-connect natin siya sa ibang regions natin. That is how we're doing it.
Pakipaliwanag ho yun.
Let's develop first Island Mindanao. There are several stories already. The story of the corn. It's so abundant in Mindanao. In yet Metro Manila, there's a scarcity in corn. The problem is infrastructure. The problem is some policy in the maritime. Because nababump off yung agricultural product against doon sa mga bote ng soft drinks at bote ng beer. Mas mahal kasi ang taripa noon sa ships kesa doon sa agricultural products. Everybody knows there's a great potential. So kailangan nating i-unlock yun. And unlocking it is by providing a connectivity interregional and intra-regional of Mindanao. Because it's useless to have Mindanao as part of the BIMP-EAGA if you cannot develop now.
And that was the first of a series of episodes on transport connectivity. Next episode, we'll continue our conversation with the Department of Transportation's Director for Planning, Felicismo Pangilinan, and talk more about existing sea and air transport linkages between the Philippines and our neighbors in BIMP-EAGA. The Brunei Darussalam Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines East ASEAN Growth Area is obviously still a work in progress. Yet maybe it is time that we find out what's already been done and, more importantly, already use them. This has been Bing. See you next episode on Regional Roundup.